Okay, everyone, well, sorry for the delay. I'll start again. Welcome to the Hallam Conference Centre. My name's Jon Kingsbury from the KTN. We're here to give you a competition briefing. I've got to read it out again. Enabling Data Access in Accountancy, Insurance and Legal Services Innovation Lab. Today has two purposes. The first is we want to give you all of the information about the competition, such that you can consider whether or not you make an application. And the second purpose of today is to get you together. There'll be plenty of time for networking throughout the day, such that you might meet new people to collaborate with on an application. Okay, so those are the purposes of today. I'll just go through the agenda quickly. The first part of the day is going to be us talking at you, I'm afraid. That's because we'd like to give you an overview of the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, and also this competition's place within that industrial strategy. And that'll be delivered by my colleague Stephen Browning. And then Sara will come on to outline the scope and the brief for the competition itself. We'll have an opportunity to take questions, both from you here in the room and also questions from the webcast as well. And then after that, Andrea from Innovate UK will be running through in some fine detail the competition application process. And that is, in fact, very, very useful, because Andrea will guide you through making an application. We're filming today, so that if at any time you want to, feel free if you want to take photos or take screenshots or of any of the slides, but because this is being filmed, you'll be able to refer to all of the information that will be up there, and that will be up in the next few days. Okay, so if you don't want to take copious notes, it's okay, we're going to film it, you can refer back to it later. I don't think there's a fire alarm today, so if the fire alarm does go, exit through the rear, please. Please feel free to tweet, and the hashtag for today is on your agenda. I think also Stephen's going to show it. It's #NextGenServices. Everything that we're going to show you, I think, is in the public domain, so nothing's sensitive or confidential, so please refer to the slides as you go along. If you want to tweet something, that's okay. And then the second part of the day, after lunch, we've got Astrid talking about AI for Services Network, which is a new network that the KTN has set up in conjunction with UKRI and Innovate UK to encourage people who are experimenting, undertaking R&D with AI for services to get involved, to meet people and collaborate around. And then we've got a pitching session, which basically is an open mic session. As part of your registration, I think we asked you whether you wanted to come up and pitch to the room for 2 minutes. And some of you, I think, have provided slides. But because it's very informal this afternoon, we won't be filming. If you'd also like to come up, if you haven't prepared slides, please come and find Astrid, who's at the back there, Astrid Wave, at lunchtime. And if you just do want to pitch this afternoon, please come and find her and we'll put you on the list. And really the pitching is what a lot of people who attend these briefing sessions find incredibly useful, because often if you haven't spoken to people at lunch or in the coffee break, then you get to hear a really wide range of different organisations, what they might be doing for a competition call, what skills, capabilities they can offer, and what they're looking for in collaboration in a collaborator. So routinely we find those pitching sessions really useful for people. Okay, I think, and then we're going to have you out of here by 4 o'clock at the latest. Okay, so I think we just want to move on, and I'd like to ask up to the stage my colleague Stephen Browning, talk about ISCF and next generation services. Stephen.
Thanks, John. So I've potentially got the least interesting role this morning, in that I'm going to give you a background of the programme as a whole, rather than the specifics of this competition. But I think that's important so that you can see what we're trying to achieve in the programme, and that sets the context for what we're then trying to achieve in the competition. So to start at the very beginning of this is part of the government's industrial strategy. And a key element of that industrial strategy is trying to get the amount spent on R&D up to 2.4% of GDP. So that's a key target that the industrial strategy is trying to achieve, and we are, as a result, in various programs like this one, trying to support the R&D in different sectors. The industrial strategy as a whole is structured around 4 grand challenges that you can see up there. And going from right to left, there's one around the future of mobility. So obviously things like autonomous vehicles come to mind in that, but it's more than that. It's also the systems around that, transport systems that could be different modes of transport. It's also about electronic vehicle batteries, that sort of thing. So a big challenge there that we're looking to help the UK develop and be a leading area in the world in that particular field. The next is clean growth, so that's looking to take advantage of the move to lower carbon solutions and potentially the circular economy type aspects that, again, the UK can benefit, or UK industry can benefit from that move. Third one along is healthy ageing, so the well-known problem of an ageing population that we need to work out how to support all of us as we reach our dotage with fewer and fewer younger people to support us. So how can, again, the UK take advantage of that particular issue to drive economic growth? And then the final one is around AI and the data economy, which is a recognition that AI, particularly machine learning, but AI in its broadest sense and the collection of data, is likely to transform pretty much every aspect of society and every sector. So how can we make sure that the UK is in a leading position to take advantage of those changes, both on the demand side of the industries, but also the supply side of the technology development. And within each of those 4 grand challenges, there are sub-challenges that are called Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund programs, of which Next Generation Services, which is the program I lead, is one. You can see a mapping there of various of those challenges to the grand challenges. Next Generation Services, down the bottom there, fits within the AI and data one. So we are particularly looking at how the move to AI-type technologies and the ever-increasing collection and use of data will transform the services sectors more broadly. And specifically, at the moment, we're thinking about accountancy, insurance, and legal services, which hence the long title of the competition that Jon pointed out earlier. Now, had a sneak preview. When people talk about AI, typically there's a reaction that comes about on the fear of the change that comes. Often you get references to robots and picture of the Terminator. I thought we'd go for a different one this time. But there is that inherent fear that this change is going to be disastrous for humankind. I personally don't subscribe to that. I would much rather look at the opportunity in that. So I think if we focus at what that change will be and how we can deliver that change as the UK, then we can really prosper from that. So the programme itself, what we're trying to do is to help develop the next generation of services in a responsible way, so overcoming the human challenges, the behavioural challenges around ethics and fairness, etc. Using particularly AI, probably machine learning in most cases, but other forms of AI as well, and couple that with increasing uses of data, so data technologies, potentially like blockchain or something like that could be relevant in here. and specifically to benefit the UK. So everything we do within the programme needs to be beneficial to the UK. That includes undertaking R&D that we support within the UK and exploiting the results of that from the UK. Some sub-objectives of the programme here. One, these three sectors are leading sectors globally within the UK. So we want to support the continued leadership position of those sectors. Now, as you have technology coming along that could disrupt these sectors, AI and data, then it could be that another part of the world leapfrogs our position in those. We want to avoid that. So we know, for example, that in legal services, Singapore has said they want to be the centre of the world for law tech. Well, we'd rather that was here. So that's one of our key intentions. We're also wanting to drive the engagement of these sectors with R&D. Right, so I said right at the beginning, one of the targets of the industrial strategy is to increase the R&D expenditure to 2.4% of GDP. The reason for that is that highly R&D intensive companies tend to drive productivity growth. Right? So what we're trying to do is ensure that these sectors also increase their productivity for economic gains. And historically, these sectors have not really been seen to be R&D engaging companies. Right? So we're trying to support that whole movement to innovating and finding new ways of delivering the services. And then finally, we want to support the supply side, so the tech supply companies. You might talk about law tech or insure tech. I've not really heard people talk about account tech yet, but maybe that's a thing that will come from this. But support that supply side to drive the UK's position in AI and data as well. Now, the programme to date, we've had three main aspects of it. We have a research programme that's running across three major universities in the country, and I can tell you later rather than spending the time now if anyone's interested, looking at aspects across these three sectors, trying to bring that together. So delivering research that should be useful for industry to further engage in this area and further understand how they might benefit from these technologies. We then have two collaborative R&D activities. These are industry-led activities where we're providing a grant to projects to develop either a broad sectoral proposition or specific solutions within one of the sectors that could be a service from a small company, or it could be a step in a process to delivering that activity. So that's how we're positioned to date. And we have seen a really good engagement so far within the programme. So we've had some major interest in those CR&D activities. We have seen that the successful organisations that are involved in that are new to UKRI. We haven't particularly interacted with them before. And a key thing that we're trying to do within this programme is show that we can provide benefit back to these sectors, and these sectors can engage with us to drive innovation. So this is a key first success for us, that actually we have that involvement going on. And another key success is we're seeing this as a multidisciplinary programme. So you might think, particularly when you consider Innovate UK, that we're really interested in the technology side and only the technology side of how we develop these things. But actually, typically, any advanced technology is held up by the human behavioural aspects that surround it. So whether that's concern about adoption, that in this space could be that whole we're all going to lose our jobs, or ethically, this is not an appropriate way to go. So we have been really pushing the need to involve social science areas to address those human behavioural problems. And we've seen good success so far in the programme. And we want that success to continue into this particular competition as well. So when you're thinking about a proposition that you might put together, please consider not only the technical aspects that you're trying to address, but also how that particular solution will be responsibly used in the future, how that will be sustainable, how the adoption piece will work with human incentives around it. So that includes business models as well as ethics, as well as behaviour change requirements. So the programme as a whole, you can see some stats there of where we are. And now we're wanting to launch this next aspect of it, which launched yesterday, ready for applications on the website. And just to complete my picture, we see that data access piece is really underpinning all the changes that might happen into the future. So this particular project we're seeing is a critical element of what we're trying to achieve. And what are we trying to achieve with this programme? So up there is the first bullet point is the objective that we want to do. So we're trying to get collaborations started around accessing data within at least one of these three sectors. Right? I say at least because there might be opportunities to access data across two or more of them that unlock other potential, but at least one of these three sectors. I also use the word access rather than sharing data for a particular reason, right? We do not want to be prejudiced from the start on what the model of that access might be. So it might be that sharing is the right way. It might be that developing standards of APIs or something similar might be the right way for a particular sector. It might be that you use distributed learning techniques or differential privacy so that you can access the data but not share it. And it might be that actually the right way to go in a particular realm is to share that data into some sort of central area. So we don't want to prejudice that. We want you to develop your ideas and develop the proposition in a way that then delivers the ultimate result. And the ultimate result we want is that second bullet point. So if you imagine yourself 5 years hence, what would success look like for us? Success would look like the deployment in these industries of new ways of accessing that data in a way that unlocks innovation, that enables new modes of delivery of the services, that enables new entrants to come in, and ultimately that keeps the UK at the leadership position it has today for those sectors. And that's me for now. We have opportunity for questions after Sara's presentation. So thank you.
Right, can everyone hear me okay? Sounds good. Let me just bring up my notes. Right, so I'm going to run through some of the specifics of the data access competition that we're launching, and then we'll move on to questions. So just to provide a little bit of context, we've already talked about the programme activity that's taken place to date. And what we were seeing that was we were still having feedback that was saying access to data was still a problem across the three sectors, and that was still a barrier for innovation. So that's really where this competition has originated from. We were seeing that there were some initiatives and solutions that maybe were dealing with a specific aspect of access to data, or they were maybe industry-wide, but there were still areas where there were gaps for that industry-wide solution that would enable more access to data. And so really we wanted to try and encourage a more open data environment and more industry-wide solutions that would really generate new opportunities both for incumbents but also for people outside of the existing ecosystem. So that's where the starting point for this. So this slide looks familiar. Just to kind of recap in case anyone wanted to take a picture and they missed it on Stephen's because he scooped me a little bit. But that's our two main objectives. So really accessing data responsibly and sustainably after the competition has finished. So now into the actual sort of nitty-gritty. It's not a standard competition. So what we've opened yesterday is stage 1, which is the Innovation Lab. So that's going to be a 3-day residential workshop. And really the sort of origin of that is to bring together people who could collaborate and form collaborations and identify the appropriate data access models and methods to enable AI applications. So what you're applying for in this first competition is to be one of the individuals that's selected to attend the Innovation Lab. And then we also hope that that Innovation Lab, people start to form the consortia and then go on to submit those into the second stage of the application, which is the CR&D. So that's where you actually are applying for funding, and that's up to 3.5 million is available. And obviously you can see details there. The maximum grant for each project will be up to 1.5 million per project. So the Innovation Lab is going to be in October, so the 14th to the 16th of October. Companies will then have 4 weeks to submit, or consortia, sorry, will have 4 weeks to then submit those applications for the second phase. And those projects, as you can see there, need to be completed by March 2021. So it's a 12-month project you would then be committing to do. And so just to show a timeline, to try and make it a little bit clearer, we're at the start of the second block, so the competition opening for the Innovation Lab, which is stage 1. And then you can see that the Innovation Lab happens in October, and then that's the point where you can submit for the funding for stage 2. And then you have the 12-month starting in March 2020. So now I'm going to deal with the scope in a bit of a backwards way, because I think it makes a little bit more sense to say what the scope we're looking for in stage 2 is, to then talk about who, what we want in stage 1 and who we think should be applying. So in stage 2, we're really looking for projects that focus on data access in at least one of the sectors, accountancy, insurance or legal. But as Stephen said earlier, we encourage applications that address multiple sectors and maybe unlock innovation that's across sector. We're also looking for proposals that are going to address incentives, opportunities, business models that really make these sustainable past the 12-month projects that we're funding, and also that deal with that multidisciplinary approach, so consider those non-technical aspects, so things like ethics, bias, privacy. We're also encouraging applications from consortia that include all the relevant stakeholders, so that could be on the demand side, the tech companies, on the sector side, supply side, sorry, for the tech companies, demand side, regulators, so that's something we're also encouraging. And then you can see finally there that the project proposals must quantify how the solution will be exploited and also address those regulatory issues and constraints. So then for this competition that's launching today, this is the scope slide for that. So really we're looking for individuals who are representing their organisation, but you are attending as an individual. So it's about whether you bring the relevant expertise either on a technical side, on the sector side, to understand the problem and also be able to work with people to develop the solutions. So we've given some examples there, so sector, technology, behavioural, business models, ethics. But we're also interested in what you can bring to potential consortia. So that might be finance resources, as per most projects, but it also might be data. What data can you bring to these projects moving forward? That might be in the first stage that there's synthesized data, but also long term it might be actual data that you're bringing to the competition. And we're really looking for a broad range of disciplines to attend the Innovation Lab. We will be taking a portfolio approach to make sure that we have representatives from the right sectors and different, so not just all tech people together, because that's not going to deliver what we need to deliver. We also are, if people have any barriers to attending, we will look at that on a cost by cost basis, but Andrea is going to go into that a little bit more when we go through the eligibility piece. And then that brings us to questions. So I think Stephen's going to join me back on the stage. We're going to do questions, and I'm going to pass my mic to Andrea for her next bit.
So I guess any questions? Are we?
Oh,
I was told these mics work.
these mics work. Yeah, it's all right.
We'll see if you can say standing.
No, because we're going to film you. So,
Okay.
yeah, you're being filmed, so we're miking you up, if that's okay. So I've got a question, first of all, which is that the application process today is for stage 1, and we're looking for individuals rather than organisations. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, you're applying as an individual, but you're on behalf of your organisation.
Great. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. So, are there questions about the scope, the eligibility, the application process we'll be coming on to? So, you've got a question there. If you could wait for a mic as well, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask if you can put the slide back up with the time frame.
Yeah.
Yes,
There we are.
exactly.
That was it. Perfect.
That was an easy one.
That was so easy. Behind you, Anita, there's a question from it. As well, if you could just say who you are and which organisation you're from, that'd be great, please. Thanks.
Sure. Anton Penna from a company called Flock. We're a bit of a hybrid between a data provider and a solution provider in the insurance space. My question was about consortia. So we've talked a lot about different companies working together. Is this a project where you're happy to welcome companies that will work on their own and then have a stakeholder, a customer involved, or does it have to be a consortia?
Yes, Stephen, I'm going to ask.
No, I would say it needs to be a collaboration, a consortia, because our expectation is that the types of issues that need to be addressed here are broad sectoral issues, so the stakeholders involved in addressing that need to come from various parties. So Sara mentioned potentially in there might be regulators to help that side of things. It might be firms on the demand side that understand what they're trying to achieve and maybe can deliver part of the data into the solution. It probably needs to include some technology suppliers. I expect it needs to include someone that has an understanding of the ethics and human behavioural side of things to address that, dealing with business models. So we're looking to address a broad problem. Okay.
It's the expectation that the consortia will come out of stage 1, the innovation lab, where are you expecting one individual to be in that lab and then bring that individual bringing a set of stakeholders into it?
So I don't know if that gets repeated in Andrea's, but just to address it now, and if it does, then you've heard it twice. What we're trying to do with the Innovation Lab is to bring people together for an opportunity to build those consortia and build those ideas. When we get into the stage of proposing, we are expecting that people can invite other parties into that proposal at that point, because we have a limited number of people that can attend the workshop, so we might have consortia that are partly formed within the workshop, but we are expecting that whoever is leading a proposal comes from the workshop.
So just to clarify, that means you have to be at the workshop if you want to apply. If you don't want to go to the workshop but you want to put in an application, otherwise you can do so as part of the partnership, but you can't lead.
So just to change some of the wordings.
Okay, yeah. Just checking.
Whoever leads a consortia to put an application in needs to have been at the workshop.
Okay.
The other partners in that consortia may or may not have been at the workshop.
Okay, thank you. Sir, your question over there, please.
Yeah, so actually my question was the same, but I just a kind of a bit more on it. If we create a consortia to do 2 of the industry sectors, can we support another consortia looking at the 3rd sector if we think some of our technologies are relevant to that? I mean, because it seems to me that there's maybe some duplication around technology assets.
I tell you what, if you hold that question, because that's
Okay,
we're
fine,
moving now much into the application
sorry.
process. So, and that's my fault because we just wanted to have a few questions about that. But hold that thought and think about it. We'll come back to it. Lady down the front.
Hello, my name is Zaina Nazir. I'm doing my PhD at the University of Southampton in autonomous vehicle with EPSRC and the STL. So I'm personally interested as an individual to participate on behalf of University of Southampton. The question is it possible to participate as an individual? And the second question, would that be helpful for my PhD on autonomous vehicles, so focusing on LiDAR application and road safety? So would there be a way of collaboration, or how does it work?
I think that's a good question on scope. So, Sara, I'm going to point to you for that.
So when you say applying as an individual, you would be applying as an individual on behalf of the University of Southampton.
Of course.
So if you're applying on behalf of an organisation, that's fine. In terms of, you would need, really we're looking for people who are then looking to ultimately apply for funding in the second stage of the competition. And it has to be for regarding accountancy, insurance and legal. So depending on the specifics of what your PhD is looking at.
So it is related. So there will be some legal issues. It is related to collecting data to increase road safety using LiDAR application for autonomous vehicles. So you do have future mobility included.
So I don't think we can say definitively that it would or would not be beneficial to you in your PhD. It would depend what consortia formed and what proposals formed in the workshop, whether that was an area that people in the workshop chose to develop. I would also say whatever we're trying to support has to be addressing the accountancy, insurance or legal services sectors, right? So we're not looking for proposals on how you develop the autonomous vehicle sector. We might be interested in proposals that are looking at how insurance needs to change around collection of data or something like that around autonomous vehicles as one example. But it's not about the autonomous vehicles for this competition, it's about the insurance, accountancy and legal services.
So it would be related, but I mean, yeah.
Perhaps
Okay,
if we
thank
need
you.
to discuss more, we can discuss.
We'll
Okay,
take another
thank you.
question. Anita down the front, please. Yeah. Well, we'll come back. Don't worry. There's plenty of time. Sorry.
Broadwaite from Grantry. First of all, I found that really interesting, autonomous vehicles, because there's been an issue about if 2 autonomous vehicles have an accident, who's to blame, kind of thing. But my question really is twofold. First of all, it's about the Innovation Lab. How many people are you expecting to take for that residential course? And secondly, it's about, I know you've got people who want to lead a consortium at that Innovation Lab.
Yeah.
Can they put in more than one application? So can they be part of 2 or 3 consortia?
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have that later in the slides?
Yeah, we'll come on the application. We'll come back to that. But how many people are you hoping to have at the labs?
Up to 60 people
Up to
is
60.
the maximum.
60, thank you.
So numbers of people putting consortium bids in, we'll come back to in the application. Okay. So thanks for waiting.
On the second question, there will be potentially people that could be across multiple proposals, right? So if you think of an organisation like the SRA, it would be daft of us to say the SRA can only be in one proposal if there's a couple of legal services proposals coming forward. So we would expect that there's opportunities for doing that.
Thank you. Sir.
Chris McCormick from Mercrofts LLP. Actually follows on from your last comment. You do mention that you want to have regulators involved. have you had any contact with regulators, with the Law Society or the SRA, or would you be expecting the applicants to sort of drive that engagement?
A bit of both. So we are, as a programme, in contact with a number of regulators, but there's a lot of different regulators and it depends on what the proposals are. So it could be that we would be looking to, or it should be that the consortia understand what they need as participation as well. And if that regulator is not somehow involved, then we might be able to facilitate some contacts after the workshop. But that needs to come from the proposals as well, to know this is the context of what we're trying to achieve.
Thanks, Chris. There's a question over there, Anita. Gentleman over there. Yeah, you. Thanks for waiting for the mic. Thank you.
No worries. Hi, good morning, and thank you very much for the presentations. This is Shafak Dogan from the Loughborough University's London campus. I have two questions. I'm a bit confused about stage 1 and stage 2. Say, for instance, we have been very, very fortunate to form a consortium right now, right here, today. And none of the members make it to the first stage. That means we are not going to be able to bid. Is that correct? That's one question. And second is quite straightforward, actually. You're asking for, in the application, the first stage, the EOI stage, to bring data, if possible. And those who do not possess such data, relevant data, will not be eligible at all?
So, on the
Thank you in advance.
So the first question, if indeed you had a preformed consortia and for some reason no one from that consortia got selected to go to the Innovation Lab, you're correct, that consortia would not be able to apply. To try and mitigate that, we are asking within the application form for people to identify if they are already part of the consortia, and we have reserved the right to do some selection of people rather than just go, this is a straight assessment process. And I've already forgotten the second question. Can someone remind me?
It's about data.
Data, yeah.
And that was, that's part of the application process. So there's, it's what you can commit. And so that's part of the assessment process. So obviously, if you do have data, that's, that's something that will be scored on, but it's not the only criteria.
And it's not a straight eligibility thing. If someone's not bringing some data, they are not eligible. That's not the case.
Thank you. We've got some questions coming over the webcast. Astrid, you're first.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry if those have been already answered. I couldn't do both at the same time.
Well, what are the questions?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you.
So, a question from Kate Morris. How many applicants can be made from the same university to join the Innovation Lab? And I guess from the same organisation as well, not just university.
Yeah, we'll deal with that in the second bit in the application process.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, about 60 applicants in total.
Second question from John Parkin. The Next Generation Services is a Pathfinder challenge. Do you have any feel for the potential of a larger scale challenge in the future, as with quantum tech, for example?
Thank you. Stephen?
So we are what's called a pioneer rather than a Pathfinder, but a pioneer fund, which is a label given to this programme as it is sort of the first venturing into these sectors that UKRI has taken. And that's just a sort of background for why the question. Part of our purpose is to identify whether there is value that we can give these sectors and these sectors can engage with our processes. And if we can prove that, then I will be trying to propose a larger programme. Can I say whether that larger programme is likely or not? Not at this stage. I can't predict the acceptance of the government, Treasury, our processes of this against other programmes that will come along. But at the moment, I would say direction of travel is to propose a larger programme in the future.
But I think you said in your presentation that the idea of the objective of the programme is to demonstrate impact. And so the more impact can be demonstrated from the initial funding.
That's true.
The
And the
stronger
more
case.
the sectors can help us demonstrate that impact, the more ammunition I have to go back to Treasury and say we need a larger programme.
Okay, thank you, that's clear.
Thank you. And the last question from Sally Spare-Tate. There are multiple challenges in the specified sector. How will the 3-day lab be run? Free problem setting or directed?
Yeah, so problem setting or directed approach. Will people have to propose an area to explore in the workshop, or?
So the basic flow of the workshop will be along the lines of trying to get people to understand who is there in the 3 days, so that they can start to form partnerships and start to put consortia together, and an expectation that during the process of the 3 days they will then be able to form initial proposals that they can bounce off us to see whether that's in scope or not, or how it might go further forward, and then have a period of time to, after that, outside the workshop, to actually bring a proposal concretely together. So the workshop is meant to be a combination of getting people to understand who is there and driving new ideas, new opportunities to address problems in this space. I'm not sure whether you would describe that as directed or facilitated or what, but that's the intention of the programme.
Okay, thank you. So you've got a question, yeah.
Peter Dennison-Pender from Ditto AI. How broad or narrow is the definition of the sectors? So accountancy, legal, insurance. Does accountancy include tax and audit, for instance? Does legal include solicitor's work and barrister's work? Does insurance include life insurance, stretching to motor insurance? Exactly.
Yeah, Stephen, one for you, I think.
I'd say yes to all of those. It's quite broad. So, but the key thing with this particular competition is to look at large cross-sectoral opportunities around the access to data. So we are more likely to favour proposals that can be broad in addressing opportunities and deliver a larger bang for the buck, as it were, than something particularly narrow. But we're not being overly restricting on what the scope of these sectors are.
So that, just to sort of try and play that back to you then, that means ideas or proposals that might use AI to transform services in the legal sector, but actually also have potential applications to transfer services across accountancy and insurance as well. So those type of applications will be favoured.
That is of interest. I'm not sure that's what you're describing as what I meant by favoured in the I meant within a sector, a broad opportunity.
Oh, right, okay, within a sector, yeah, okay.
And we are also interested in ones that do more than one of these sectors, but it depends on what the proposal is and how realistic it is at delivering impact. So,
does that answer your question, Pete? Yeah, great, okay. At the back there, Anita, hello, yeah.
Richard Chaplin from the Managing Partners Forum. It's more for Stephen, I think, this one. One of your diagrams showed the existing research and R&D projects and gave a sort of castle perimeter, I suppose, around them and indicated this particular project. How does that work in terms of two things? One, interaction between those existing projects, which are still ongoing, and secondly, around dissemination of the findings from this particular initiative and the extent to which you are looking to disseminate separately from or through those existing projects.
So learning less, integration with the other projects in the portfolio and learnings from them. Yeah, Steve.
One of the principles we want to try and pursue in the programme is that learning from one part can be shared with other parts of the programme. It's a little more difficult to say that something that we don't yet know what it is in terms of a proposal will share its learning via an existing project. But in principle, we want the sum of these parts to be bigger than the individual elements. So having learning coming out of our research programme, disseminating that such that participants in the rest of the programme can benefit from that is definitely an intention. The intention is actually beyond the programme, so we want that learning to be accessible to the broader sectors. But we are intending to try and get synergies within the programme. And one of the elements that we're using to do that, you will hear about later from Astrid, is the AI for Services Network, which is our attempt to make sure that people within these sectors learn and have the sort of networking and contact opportunities to further develop their understanding of what R&D is possible, what the benefits of R&D are, how you address particular issues, etc. So I'd say that's a very much a broader intention than just this particular competition.
Okay, Nita, there's a question there. Yes, sir.
Hello there, Milo Alexander from Omni Business Solutions. We give AI and machine learning solutions to governments and large enterprises. I think what you've presented here is quite fabulous. And one thing is, my background is from the insurance and law side of things. Have you thought about how distributed ledger technology can really take this to the next level beyond the scope of this? And do you realize the bottlenecks you'll have when speaking to sort of like the old guard in embracing this? Have you thought about that, number one? And number two, our solution for this is actually we are educating the younger pups in the secondary schools, colleges, and the universities, because we find they're already embracing technology, whereas some of the old pups really, they don't have a clue. So have you thought about that for scalability and longevity?
Thanks, Alexander.
So for the DLT part of it, the distributed ledger, that could be part of a proposal, but we are not coming at this from we have a particular technology in mind that we're going to push. The intention here is to make sure that data is accessible in a way that increases the competitiveness of these sectors globally. The point about the old guard, or old pups, I think as you put it, yes, that could be an issue. That's why what we want to ensure is that people address the human behavioural aspects as well as the technology aspects. So that would be a critical piece for any proposal to understand how they're going to change that. To do that, I believe you need to include people who are in that realm so that you understand their issues, rather than just go, okay, we'll go with a completely new group, because ultimately any proposal here needs to address the sector as it is as well as the sector as it's going to be.
Okay, thank you. Anita, there's a question there, and then another one towards the back. Hi, sir.
Dan Francis, BDO. Just a question on timescales. Stage 2, 4 weeks from consortium forming to final submission. Sounds a bit ambitious.
Sara?
Well, I mean, I think the objective is that during the innovation lab, you'll have done some of that initial kind of, idea formation, and there'll be people on hand, just like Stephen was saying. That, so if you want a bit of feedback on, the direction you're heading, that will be part of the innovation lab. So we're hoping that when that finishes, that 4 weeks, you've already kind of made a start on some of that kind of the application process. So it's not coming in cold and then having just 4 weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks for a large organisation is a very short amount of time, particularly in terms of submission. What could be a legally binding proposal. Maybe we'll come on to it in the second part.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Dan. We'll bear that in mind as we go into the next presentation. Sir, no, chap in orange shirt. Yeah,
Hi there, Adam Hill, Structure Flow, a small legal tech startup. I apologise if you've covered this already, but I guess a fear might be that you turn up to the Innovation Lab and there's no one that you really synergise with in terms of the product you're planning to put out. So to what extent are you maybe thinking about engineering the group, making sure that there will be synergies there if you're not trying to bias the output in any way?
Yeah, thanks. Sara? Stephen? Sorry.
That's a risk. That is a risk. So Sara said we will be looking to do a portfolio approach as we describe it in selecting who attends, and part of that will be if there is someone that is clearly trying to address a problem that no one else has mentioned anywhere, then it might not be appropriate to have them there. We're also going to be looking at how people might relate to each other and be able to form consortia. Having said that, part of what we want to do in the Innovation Lab is get people to think more broadly. So if you intend to come with one fixed idea and try and push that, that's probably not the attitude we would like you to come with. It's think what other opportunities you might help to deliver. The purpose of something that is a 3 days, which we expect to be quite intensive 3 days, is to get some broader thinking going. So.
And I guess going back to the point before, if, you know, say you find one partner but other partners maybe aren't quite aligned with that kind of idea, then you do have that opportunity to bring in other partners outside of the Innovation Lab to form the final consortia.
As I understand it, the insurance policy is if you're at the lab, you can, and you hate everyone else there, then the fact that you're at the lab lets you lead a consortia of people who aren't at the lab. So I think the message there is apply for the lab, please, because that's the best opportunity of either getting a really good collaboration through people there or not.
But to be honest, if you come to a lab with an idea addressing something that is broad sectoral problem, the chances of finding no one there that is interested in that problem, I would say, should be pretty low.
Okay, thank you. Chap in the, I want to say peach shirt.
No, actually, I had the same question. So.
Oh, right, so you're okay, great, all right, brilliant. Okay, there's a question down here, and then we're going to move on.
Because Astrid's got some as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Jafar Al-Musad from Omni Business Solutions. Would you describe what a winning consortia would look like in terms of participants, number of participants, skill set, and so
on? That's difficult to describe in anything beyond fairly generic statements, right? Because it will depend on the particular problem that they're trying to address. But I think important, as I've said a couple of times, is all the stakeholders that will help deliver that as a sustainable model, which probably includes people on the firm, the sector side that have the need, technology developers, people who can help with the behavioural aspects. If there is a regulatory part in it, regulators, people who actually have the data that is necessary so that they're involved in actually being able to share the data. So it's those, try and make sure you've got the stakeholders that will deliver what you're trying to achieve. That's the important thing, right? In terms of numbers, it depends again on how you're trying to deliver the piece.
Okay, we must move on. So I'll take questions about the scope, but if we could leave application questions till after Andrea's presentation. So Astrid, are there any questions over the webcast that are about the scope of the competition?
Just one last one. From Professor Sina Yekin, what data are you expecting us to bring from the accounting end?
So what data?
I can't specify that because, as I say a couple of times now, it depends on the problem you're trying to address. So it needs to be the data that deals with that broad problem. Some obvious data would be company data on performance, whether that's financial accounts or unstructured data, contractual information, all those sorts of bits. But it really depends on exactly what the problem space, what the proposal is from the particular consortia.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
great,
you.
thank you.
Okay, so if there are no more questions on the scope of the competition, we had some questions about the application process and the workshops, and I think that's fine because you need to get your head around how the competition works. But I would like to invite up to the podium now Andrea Bond from Innovate UK, and Andrea, you'll be talking us through the application process. Andrea, thank you.
Probably not.
It's on.
It's on. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Yes, I'm Andrea, and I am a portfolio manager that works within the competitions team at Innovate UK. And this is the agenda today, for which I will give you a brief overview of the application process and the eligibility to apply. As Sara highlighted earlier, this is a two-stage competition, which includes the 3-day innovation lab, which is a collaborative workshop, followed by the submission of a collaborative project proposal. Today, we're just going to focus mostly on the innovation lab, but I will touch upon parts of the project proposal as we go through. Before we go over the eligibility criteria, I would just like to highlight that these are the types of organisations Innovate UK fund. This includes, as you can see, businesses of any size, research organisations including universities, non-profit distributing research and technology organisations including catapults, public sector research establishments, research councils and charities, all of which must be based within the UK. So moving on to the eligibility criteria, which may be repetitive of what Sara has already mentioned, but you must be a UK-based business or academic, charity or RTO. You must attend the 3-day residential innovation lab, and that would be for the whole 3 days. And you need to show that you are able to work collaboratively and have the relevant skills and expertise to represent your organisation. As you can see up there, it says that we will not accept multiple applications. So just to clarify on that, that's multiple applications from individuals. So if an organisation wishes to send 3 people to the Innovation Lab and they're happy for them to apply, that's fine, just as long as it's on the organisation and not from an individual. For those of you that are funding before, it is important to note that if you have an outstanding final claim or an independent accountant report on any live Innovate UK project, you will not be eligible to apply to the Innovation Lab or for the grant funding in this competition, or as a lead or as a partner organisation. And similarly, if you applied to a previous competition as the lead or sole company and were awarded funding by Innovate UK, but you did not make substantial effort to exploit that award, we will not award any more funding to you. As you can see from that slide, this is the key dates in relation to this competition. It is important to note that the submission deadline it closes noon on the dot, which means the IFS system will close. So if you try to submit an application at 12:01, you won't be successful. We strongly recommend that you get your applications in earlier rather than later. There is a very high traffic on the deadline day, so this can cause problems. So we would advise that you get it done as early as possible, and that if you are having any problems submitting your application, to contact our customer services support so that we can address this early on. So this brings me to the Innovation Funding Service, which is the system that you will use for this competition. This is just for information. This map highlights that there are users from all over the world and that IFS helps them to collaborate with their project partners no matter where they are. As you would expect, the majority of users are based in the UK, but we also have a large amount of users within the US, followed by China, India, Colombia and Germany. So moving on to how you find out information about this competition. So you can search for a funding competition and review the criteria on the Innovate UK website. You need to find the competition that you're interested in. This can be done by using the keyword search facility, which is highlighted in the first box. Once you've found the competition you're interested in, if you click on the title of that competition, it will take you to a tabbed view of the information regarding eligibility criteria, scope, key dates, and information on how to apply. And when you are happy and ready to apply, simply click New Application. To apply for the competition, the lead applicant will need to create an account unless you've applied to a competition before, which you simply just sign into IFS. You can use Companies House Lookup to search for your organisation to save typing in the name and address. If you're not on Companies House, you will need to enter the information manually. We advise that research organisations, academics and universities manually enter the information so that they're not listed as a business on IFS and to ensure that they receive the right level of funding. The application process for this competition is made up of 2 sections. The first section relates to application details. It's quite important that you fill in this information here, otherwise it won't move on. So within the project field, you just need to enter Innovation Lab. Within the start date, please put the date of the Innovation Lab, which is the 14th of October. And for the duration, enter 1 month. Section 2 relates to the application questions, in which there are a total of 8 for this competition. I would advise that you refer to the very detailed guidance available for each question within the IFS system. It will give you all of the information in which you need to address for each question, rather than us go through every single question and advise you on what you need. It's easier if you just take a look at the information that's provided for you. Please note, however, that question 6 allows for an appendix which is limited to 1 page and 10 megabytes in size. So moving on to submitting your application, as you can see from this slide, this is the sort of traffic on the day of the deadline. As I highlighted earlier, this can be quite a problem and has at times caused our system to crash. So please make sure you get your application in early. All sections must be marked as completed before you're able to submit your application, and IFS will highlight this as you go through the process. So it will tell you if there's anything outstanding or a section is incomplete. We see a lot of applicants who complete the application, but for some reason it doesn't go to the final steps of submitting that. So please make sure that you click on Submit Application in order for the application to be submitted, and you then should receive a confirmation email acknowledging this. This is what you'll see once your application has been submitted. Importantly, it describes the next steps in the process. Moving on to the assessment process for this competition, your application will be reviewed and scored by 5 assessors and an occupational therapist. Psychologist, sorry. We're not giving you a counselling, I promise. They will look for evidence that you have an open, engaging, flexible, imaginative and creative outlook, the ability to develop innovative ideas, the ability to work constructively with people from diverse disciplines, and the stamina and enthusiasm needed to work with strangers intensely over the 3-day Innovation Lab. This is an excerpt from a panel sheet. This is a sheet that is created when we have all of the assessments in. The right-hand column shows the score for a particular application, and the highlighted column shows the score spread, this is the difference between the top and bottom scores received. The next 2 columns lets us know whether an application has been marked as in scope and recommended for funding. If there are 3 or more appear in either of the 2 columns that count as not in scope or recommended, we would review the application detailed. We'll have a look at the assessment scores and the comments made about that just to check that it's fully justified. The green box highlights a particular assessor's score, which is the column going across the top, and the ones going down highlights the scores from each assessor for each question. Once the assessment process has been finished, you will receive feedback on your application. So the lead will be notified when your feedback is available, and this will go on to the RIFS dashboard for them to view. So just touching upon the Innovation Lab, as Sara has highlighted, this is going to take place from the 14th to the 16th of October. Participants are expected to stay for the full 3 days. The location will be announced at a later date. Innovate UK will pay for the residential and subsistence costs for the Innovation Lab, excluding alcohol. But it's important to note that we will not cover travel costs to or from the Innovation Lab or for the time you spend developing a project proposal. If you are chosen to attend the Innovation Lab, you will need to sign and return a confidentiality agreement by the 8th of October. This is to protect existing intellectual property and to allow full disclosure of expertise and capabilities at the Innovation Lab. Now I'll just give a brief overview on the second phase of the competition. For phase 2, the key points to note are as follows. Any projects you develop at the Innovation Lab can have a minimum grant funding of 1.5 million. The closing date for project proposals to be submitted to IFS is the 20th of November, so this will open once the Innovation Lab is up and running. This will allow you 4 weeks to finalise and submit your project proposal. Just to highlight that we are looking to fund business-led industrial research projects or experimental development projects. The eligibility criteria for phase 2 is listed on the slide. So the lead organisation must be a UK-based business and must have attended the Innovation Lab, which is really key here. They need to carry out the project work in the UK and intend to exploit the results from the UK. The lead and at least one other organisation must be claiming grant funding. You must be eligible for state aid, and the project must start by the 1st of April 2020 and be completed by the 31st of March 2021. Research organisations collaborating as part of the consortia may share up to 30% of the total eligible project cost. And if your phase 2 proposal is successful, you will be invited to attend an interview where you will be required to give a presentation. This slide is just a reminder of the type of funding you will receive depending upon the type of organisation you are. So if you are a micro or small business, you can claim up to 70% of the total project costs. As highlighted earlier, research organisations can claim up to 30%, but if you have more than one research organisation participating in your consortia, it's important to note that they will share that 30%. This slide just gives you an example of how the funding rules might work for an industrial research CNRD project. So you can see the differences between the different size businesses and then the fact that it includes a university and a catapult and how that may work out. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
I'm going to ask Sara and Stephen and Andrea if you take a seat there. So that was a whiz through the application process. Thank you very much. Were there any questions? I know we had questions about the workshops before. But through Andrea's presentation, were there questions that arose? No? Yeah, there. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
You mentioned if you have an outstanding grant to claim, you wouldn't be eligible, right? If you claimed that before the Innovation Lab or before the application, or before submitting, basically, would you then still be eligible to apply?
Yes, anything that might, can you hear me? Anything that might be outstanding, if that's finalised before you are able to take up a new project, then yes, you would still be eligible. So I think it relates to the time at which you would receive a grant offer letter. It would need to be resolved by that point in order for you to then receive the funding from your new award.
Okay, great, sir.
Hi, Seamus from NGB. Just two questions, actually, if I can be cheeky. First one is, I'm assuming it's match funding, so that we need to go and find the equivalent funds elsewhere. And the second is, the work which we would do, we would like to open source a lot of that as we go. So we can imagine ourselves kind of creating a consortium to do that, but actually we wouldn't mind if somebody took another industry sector, say insurance, and leverage some of that open source. So is that okay to have that kind of collaboration across consortium as well, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Stephen to answer that one. So,
on the first question about match funding, yes, there needs to be an industry match. One thing I think we failed to coordinate properly between Andrea and myself, I'll take the blame for that, was we are expecting at least a 50% match from the consortia into this. So the figures that Andrea put up of like 70% for an SME, the consortia will need to work out how they do the claiming so that there's at least a 50% match overall. That's the first point. The second bit on open sourcing and giving opportunities to other things, then yes, that would be eligible.
thank you. Stephen, when you talk about the 50% match, is that for the workshop or for the funding?
For the funding.
For the funding. And what's the payment for the workshop?
So the I think Sara said, or Andrea said, we're not paying people to attend.
Yeah.
And we're not providing their travel to and from.
Yeah.
But we are paying for subsistence
The workshop.
during the workshop, accommodation, no alcohol. And Sara also said in her presentation, if individuals have a difficulty attending for some particular reason, then please let us know a particular reason, potentially like childcare issues or something like that. Please let us know, and we will see if there's a case-by-case opportunity where we can do something to alleviate that difficulty.
And questions, I've kept it up on the slide, so questions, if you do have specific questions about your application, use the support Innovate UK contact as the way of asking about any kind of issues, problems. Yeah. Are there any other? Yes. Just like to wait for the microphone there. Thank you.
Hi. I have a question about the application eligibility. So you mentioned about outstanding client for the grant. So can we have the grant, does it include Innovate UK competition as a procurement project? Can we have, so it's slightly different than a grant as a procurement project from Innovate UK. Would that count as a conflicting?
I would have to check on that for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
If you have a specific question, then email and we'll double check. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, from the webcast?
No questions.
Great, okay. Well, look,
I have
Stephen.
something I would like to add. I think we didn't really describe very well what we think the project might be for 12 months, right? So there we're expecting people to develop a sort of proof of concept type approach, what the model might be, identify the business models, the sustainability that could then be a self-sustaining model adopted by industry immediately following that 12-month period. So we're not expecting in the 12-month period that you've solved absolutely everything and deployed it and it's great. That 12 months is to get that piece going that then needs to be some sort of self-sustaining model that could be deployed into the industry after that. Okay. If I do manage to get a successful bid for a subsequent program, then it could be and I'm not guaranteeing this, so lots of caveats around this. It could be that part of that subsequent programme would be a demonstration, but please don't rely on that, a demonstration competition for those things, but please don't rely on that. Think of it as this is what we've got today, and we have to work out how we self-sustain.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Astrid, there's...
To contribute to their match funding? That's the first question. And the second question is, universities receive 80% of their 100% full economic cost, and the remaining 20% does not count towards the consortia's match funding. So the first question is, do universities need to contribute to the match funding?
I'm going to take the second first. The limit that we have on Innovate UK funding approaches is that research organisations can claim 80% of their full economic costs. That's the absolute limit. The consortia as a whole has to work out how it will deal with the need to match fund at 50% of the total project cost, the money that comes from government. So that means if the consortia agrees that an academic partner can go fully to 80%, that's up to them to deal with it. If they agree with that university that they can find another source of match funding, then that's up to the consortia. But the consortia as a whole has to achieve that 50%.
Okay, there's a question down the front, Anita. This side, yeah, thank you. Sarah, I'm hearing a click on the... Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question actually. How the funding is provided? Is it like upfront in installments or in reimbursement?
So the way in which we pay our grants is that they are paid on a quarterly basis. So you have to put a claim in. So it'd be in arrears, I believe.
It's quarterly in arrears on defrayed and incurred costs is the formal way it's expressed.
Thanks.
Thank you. There's another question in the aisle there. Thank you. If you'd like to give your name and which organisation you're from.
Hi, I'm Heidi. I'm from Flock.
Thanks,
I
Heidi.
just wanted to confirm, so it's okay to be in a live Innovate project. The issue only comes in if you have any outstanding claims or
yes,
or
the
IAR reports. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're in a project that will be ending in Q1 next year, so we would still be eligible to apply.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, good, okay. Thank you, that was easy, thank you. Any other questions about the application process or about the scope of the call or about the workshop? There's one at the front, Anita. Yeah, you said, yeah. Thank you.
I graduated from Grantry. We help people put innovation funding applications together. Really quick question, might have been covered already. It's just about, we're talking about using a lot of data, and it's really about security involved with data, which is only going to become more and more of an issue going forward. So I haven't mentioned today how we're going to cover those kind of aspects. So for example, when you say access to data, we're also talking about security. There's elements of blockchain and in this as well. So I'd like to hear just something about that really.
Yeah, Stephen?
So one of the things that we will be explaining for anyone applying into the second stage is that we will be expecting a risk assessment on the data that they're proposing as part of that process to go forward. So the security of the data is, again, another aspect that's not necessarily the pure technical thing. In that case, it's a bit more technical, but the pure technical piece of the proposal. And we're looking for all-encompassing proposals to address what they're going to do. So we would expect that proposals address any security concerns, any risks around the types of data that are being accessed, as well as the other bit. So you need to think broadly on how I'm going to address this as a problem or as an opportunity within the sector to ensure that it can be deployed after the 12 months.
Okay, thank you. I think we've reached the end of questions, but does anyone have any lingering questions that they'd be kicking themselves if they didn't put their hand up and ask?
Yeah, there was a question from the live webcast. Is there a restriction on how many individuals per organization can apply? I think you've answered that question, but they want you to say it again.
Okay, just to clarify, for the Innovation Lab, we will accept applications, multiple applications from an institution or organisation or company, but we will not accept multiple applications from an individual. So therefore, we would only expect to see one application, say, from Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
But I mean, I would encourage, think about it within your organisations, because obviously if everyone from your organisation applies, we want you to be putting forward the strongest case possible. So,
And then talk to each other within the organisation.
Yes, but like Andrea says, you're not limited to one per organisation.
Okay, thanks, Sara.
Thank you. So, I think then we're done for questions. According to our agenda, this was going to take us to 12:45, and it's not yet noon. So, I think what I'm going to do is ask Astrid to come up and give her presentation, which she was going to give this afternoon after lunch, such that we can update people and get that filmed, AI for Services, because you made a reference to it a couple of times as a network which is bringing existing funded projects together as well as with the wider sector. So in order to do that, we need to do a couple of things. We need to thank our panellists for speaking. So please join me in thanking. And then Andrea, if you could just hand over your lapel mic to Astrid. Sara, who's helping us on AV, you've got the presentation up. Perfect. I'd like to introduce...
Can I just say one other thing? We're not running away. So if you have individual questions that you didn't want to ask in open forum, as it were, at least for the people in the room, then we'll be around over lunch and after lunch to ask those.
Thank you. Thank you. Astrid.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you about AI for Services, which is the next stage of the next, this is the next phase of the Next Generation Services Challenge, as well as this funding opportunity. So I'm Astrid Ayel. I work with Jon as part of the Knowledge Transfer Network. And really my job is to connect you, so innovative businesses, universities, to commercial and academic opportunities, as well as funding opportunities. So we're setting up this network really to bring together data and artificial intelligence businesses and academics with the professionals working in the high-value services sectors of legal, accountancy, insurance, and finance. So you can go on the website www.aiforservices.org and join. It's a free membership. So why should you join? We will be publishing insightful contents, so case studies, industry reports, and insight, and also organizing events to bring those people together. You'll also have the chance to promote your own events and or webinars. Really also we want to use this network to share your success stories. So as Stephen was mentioning, there's already been 40 plus projects that have been funded through the Next Generation Services Network, and we'll use AI for Services to promote those projects and those that will be coming out of this competition on enabling data access. So you can already check out the list and summary of those 40 plus funded projects on the AI for Services page. I've also put together a Google spreadsheet of events coming up, so you can look at AI and data events, insurance tech, legal tech, and accountancy tech events that might be of interest for you. That's UK-wide. And we've got a LinkedIn group, a Twitter channel, and soon we'll also be launching a Slack channel. So just wanted to show you an example of events that we'll be running. So as part of the London Tech Week, we organized a FinTech matchmaking event. So we got 10 banks. So that's kind of leading financial institutions such as Lloyds, Barclays, Citibank, NatWest Markets, UBS, etc. And we selected 18 startups to meet those banks face-to-face in a speed networking format. So they had 5 minutes to speak to each bank, and then the banks would come back and say, yes, I want to talk to them again, or no. And we made around more than 50 plus introductions in total. So that's banks that wanted to engage and follow up with those startups afterwards. So I'm not sure if I can show you the video. Oh, thank you. That's a video highlight, just to give you a flavor. So we want to organize some speed networking events to connect insurance, so insurers with tech startups, law firms.
Speed networking event that brings small companies together with banks and insurance companies so that they can help you solve their innovation challenges. So the Knowledge Transfer Network is an organisation that connects people to accelerate innovation.
KTN has become one of our key strategic partners here in the UK, and we help them find the most suitable startups for this open call, for this FinTech matchmaking event. I believe the FinTech matchmaking event, KTN, was a true success because there was a lot of engagement between startups and banks, and I truly hope that there will be a lot of collaborations out of this particular event.
I'm Jonas Patanu. I work for Citi. I'm co-head of European Government Affairs, and I'm also working very closely with our innovation teams and the investment teams. I met some really interesting people with some great ideas. I'm going to help introduce them to relevant people inside the company to make sure they get funding to kick off their projects, because I've heard some really, really interesting things.
Credit Enable is a global technology insights and solutions company. And tonight's been really great for us because we've been able to speak directly to the banks at a high level, and we have relationships with banks in India, and we're now looking at UK and European banks for tonight to be able to speak to those people and get some really good feedback and hopefully some connection to potentially moving that into a commercial agreement. That was really valuable for us.
A couple of months we have been rated by early metrics. It was a quite interesting and useful experience for us actually. And we feel lucky to be selected to participate in this event.
Well, it's great to be part of this community and to work with companies like Early Metrics. I think the great thing about this is there's always an undiscovered startup, and this just brought that to life today. So even though we're really well connected and see startups, there was new ones today that we've never come across. So that surfacing is hugely valuable.
Yeah, so we think that you know what, from chatting to fintech startups, I discovered that a huge barrier was to be able to talk to those commercial partners and sit with them and discuss the solution. You know, you might try and send things to them via email, but you don't really know if they've actually received it or if they're interested or not. This is why we think it might be valuable to do it also for the insurance, legal, and accountancy sectors to get the huge corporations to meet those startups. As part of the event, we invite industry experts, investors, academic experts, and the startups also have an opportunity to talk to them. Watch this space, register online, it's a really quick membership form, and then you'll be able to receive news on the events and content that we'll be publishing for this network. And then finally, I just wanted, since you kind of the perfect audience for this network, you are the audience of this network, I just wanted to get some of your thoughts as we're still trying to plan the activities. So we just want to make sure that what we're wanting to plan is actually of interest to you. So if I can just ask you to log in onto menti.com. So the Wi-Fi is HCC, and the code is HALAM44, all lowercase. Then if you go onto the Menti, if you go onto the Menti website, then I will ask you 3 or 4 questions. That's all right. So the code, once you're on the Menti website, the code is 59762.
We can keep this up over lunch, can't we?
Yeah, sure, yeah. But it'd be nice to have an idea because I can log in, I can look at the results live as well, so.
Great. Well, maybe we'll show the results live after.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Can people log in all right? Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Astrid. Yeah,
great.
Thank you. So we are going to break for lunch now, a bit early. Lunch will be served downstairs from 12:15. So, and we're going to bring, because we had this section of the agenda sooner, before lunch, I'm going to ask you to come back at 1:15. So you've got an hour for lunch. And then this afternoon, could I just have a show of hands? Who's already provided slides for the pitching sessions? Great. So if you, please stay for those, because those are really useful. And if you haven't provided slides, but you'd like to get up and talk about yourself or your organisation, please come and find Astrid during lunch. Lunch is served downstairs. Someone has left their phone. Ah, great. So we found it. That's okay. So thank you. We're not, for those of you who have logged on the webcast, we're not filming the pitch slides, but we will be making those available. So if you're not here after the briefing event, we'll be putting up the pitch slides that people will be presenting. And we'll be, if you've registered for the webcast, we'll send you the link to the place that those pitch slides are up. Meanwhile, please enjoy your lunch, get to know people, be socially promiscuous, and we'll see you back at 1:15. Thanks very much. Thank you.